Ethan hadn't turned on his TV in weeks, but that didn't matter. It started switching on by itself every single night. At precisely 3:07 a.m., the screen would just glow with that familiar, fuzzy static, and from inside the noise, he'd hear something whisper his name. It was faint at first, like a breeze through a crack in the window, but it was there. At the beginning, he blamed it on sleep deprivation. He worked grueling night shifts at the warehouse, barely slept more than a few hours at a time, and lived completely alone. His mind was playing tricks on him, he told himself. That had to be it. But then, he started seeing movement inside the static. It wasn't just random noise anymore. It was a shadow, a vague shape that seemed to lean just a little bit closer every night. That's when he stopped sleeping altogether. He'd sit on the edge of his bed, eyes wide, staring at the screen, waiting for it. The fear was a cold knot in his stomach. He felt like he was being watched, observed from a place he couldn't understand. Was he losing his mind? He had to know. So one night, he propped his phone up on his dresser and hit record, aiming it at the TV and his bed. He needed proof, one way or another. When he played the video back the next morning, his blood ran cold. But in the background, on the TV screen, the static wasn't just static. It shifted, it swirled, and for a terrifying second, it coalesced. A face. It was pale, with dark, hollow eyes and a smile that was far too wide. It was watching him sleep. He didn't hesitate. He ripped the TV's plug from the wall, dragged the heavy set out of his apartment, and slammed it into the communal dumpster down the alley. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was over. But that night, at 3:07 a.m., the static came from his phone. The familiar buzz woke him from a restless doze. The screen was bright white, filled with the same hissing static, and then the whisper, clearer this time, right next to his ear. "Why did you turn me off, Ethan?" he screamed. He scrambled out of bed, barefoot, his heart hammering against his ribs. He burst out of his apartment and into the empty pre-dawn street, the phone still buzzing and glowing in his hand. He had to get rid of it. He dropped it, letting it clatter onto the asphalt, but the screen stayed on. The static warped, changing into a live video feed, showing him standing there, panicked and alone in the middle of the street. Then the whisper came again, but this time it felt like it was inside his head. "You look so much better on camera, Ethan." In a final act of desperation, he stomped on the phone, smashing the screen into a spiderweb of cracks. But as he looked up, gasping for breath, he caught his reflection in a parked car's window, and in the reflection, he saw himself, still holding the phone, perfectly intact. Now, Ethan doesn't go near screens. He covers every mirror in his small apartment with old newspapers. He lives in a world of shadows, terrified of his own reflection. He says that static isn't just noise, it's a doorway. The recording showed him, just as he expected, sleeping peacefully in bed, and once something on the other side has seen you through it, it never stops watching. Some say when you lose your mind, everything goes quiet. But Ethan learned the hard way that madness doesn't come in silence. Madness hums. If this story is going to keep you up tonight, you know what to do. Subscribe for more tales from the dark. I moved into the old farmhouse last winter. The real estate agent warned me. It's been empty for years. I should have listened. The first night, the house felt alive. The floorboards groaned like something breathing. Every wall seemed to hum with voices. I thought it was just the pipes. Maybe old wood expanding in the cold. But one night, I heard my name, Eli. It came from the walls right behind my bed. I pressed my ear to the cold plaster, and there it was, someone whispering back, "Let me out." I grabbed a flashlight and followed the sound into the hallway. It led me to a door I'd never noticed before. It was narrow and sealed shut with old, rusty nails. The voice grew louder, pleading now, "Please, I'm still here." My heart was hammering against my ribs. As I started to pry the nails loose, a smell hit me. Rot, dampness. Inside was a small crawl space, barely big enough to even kneel in, and on the inside of the wall were scratch marks, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Then I found something worse, an old, dusty locket lying on the floor. Inside was a picture of a little girl. The whisper came again, but this time it was right next to my ear. "Thank you for finding me." The walls began to move, the plaster rippling like it was breathing. A hand, pale and thin, pressed out from inside the wall. Then another. I dropped the flashlight. The voice wasn't whispering anymore. It screamed, "You shouldn't have opened it." The walls split open like a mouth, and I saw faces, hundreds of them trapped beneath the paint, their eyes rolling in agony. When I woke up, I was back in my bed, For a moment, I thought it was just a terrible dream. But when I turned to the wall, the locket was there, sitting on my nightstand, and faintly, through the plaster, I heard knocking. Every wall remembers what it hides. There are more stories waiting for you in the dark. Subscribe before it's too late. They said the apartment was normal, a small place, freshly painted, with surprisingly low rent, a real steal. But the very first night I moved in, I knew something was wrong. Not haunted, not cursed, just off. Standing in the middle of the living room, the space just didn't add up. My brain couldn't make sense of it. I tried to shake it off, blaming moving day exhaustion. I decided to count the corners, a stupid little trick to ground myself. 1, 2, 3, but the fourth one was just missing. It wasn't rounded, and it wasn't hidden behind the boxes I hadn't unpacked yet. It was gone. The wall just bent inward at a strange angle, like the room didn't want to close properly. I squinted, thinking it had to be an optical illusion, a trick of the dim evening light. That's when I saw it. A tiny flicker of motion, right there inside the impossible bend. Something that definitely didn't belong. A faint whisper, like a breath of cold air, seemed to brush past my ear, saying, "Don't look." That night, I woke up to a humming sound. It was soft, rhythmic, and it was coming from the living room. My phone screen glowed with the time, 3:33 a.m. The air in my bedroom was completely still, heavy, making it hard to breathe. I crept out of bed and peered through the doorframe. The missing corner, it was open. It wasn't a wall anymore. It was a void, a dark, narrow slit in reality that seemed to pulse gently, as if it were breathing. And from deep within that suffocating darkness, I saw eyes, hundreds of them, all staring back at me. I stumbled backward, fumbling for the light switch. Click, click, nothing. Click, click. The room stayed stubbornly dark. That's when something started to crawl out. It wasn't a clear shape, not a distinct figure. It was just hands. Dozens of them, pale and thin, stretching far too long to belong to anything human. They slithered onto my floor, silently pulling the rest of whatever they were attached to from the void. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I tried to hit record. The screen glitched, the image warping into a distorted mess. For a split second, it showed me, but I wasn't in my bedroom. I was standing inside the void, with those hands reaching for me. That's when I understood. The room wasn't broken. It was hungry. The next morning, I called my landlord, my voice trembling. I told him about the corner, the void, the hands. He just laughed. "You must be mistaken," he said calmly. "I just checked the floor plans. That room has 5 corners." 5. My blood ran cold. I hung up and rushed back into the living room, and he was right. The missing corner was back, but now there was a new one on the opposite wall. The geometry was all wrong. Everything leaned slightly inward, as if the entire room was slowly folding in on itself, trying to crush whatever was at its center. I hadn't slept properly since. The walls whisper when the lights go out. At first, it was just unintelligible murmurs, but now they're saying my name. And I swear, every time I blink, the corners shift, inching just a little bit closer. Last night, I got out the tape measure again. The room was smaller, by almost a foot on each side. It's closing in. So, if I suddenly disappear, you'll know where I went. I think the room is finally finding its shape. Sometimes, a room isn't built to keep you in. It's built to become you. If this story is going to keep you up tonight, you know what to do. Subscribe for more tales from the dark.